Pokemon Wind and Wave have officially been announced to release in 2027. The trailer for these new titles has fans really excited for what appears to be a huge step forward for the franchise. The visuals in this game are looking stunning, and they appear to be a huge improvement over the last several entries for the original Nintendo Switch. This game is set to be a Switch 2 exclusive, and now I'm hoping to see massive improvements to utilize all that power. The trailer gave us a first look at the new world to explore, but we still have a lot to learn about this game. So until then, all we can do is dream about what new life could be brought to the series this time. So what if the next Pokemon games finally did something fans have been asking for years? What if instead of silent characters and endless text boxes, we actually got fully voiced cutscenes? My name is Jeremy and we're Switchcraft and Switchery. We talk about all things video games here, primarily focused on Nintendo. If you enjoyed this video and discussion, make sure you hit like and follow us on all platforms for more content. When the Nintendo Switch first got announced almost 10 years ago, if you're like me, your mind started running crazy thinking of all the ways gaming could change and grow. The Switch brought together portable and home console gaming, and one of the first things I thought about was Pokemon. Now Pokemon games would be built for a console experience, not just a 2D platforming game made for linear adventures. I started imagining Pokemon games with an open world, a 360-degree camera, and a world that has physical and visual depth, and being able to see Pokemon out wandering the world. It was a bit of a bumpy ride with the Let's Go titles, Sword and Shield, Legends Arceus, and Scarlet and Violet, but nonetheless we did eventually get these things. I played through Pokemon Violet after the visual upgrades were made for the Switch 2, and one of the things that absolutely crushed the experience for me was the seemingly never-ending mindless dialogue and text boxes. Especially early in the game, there were brutally long stretches of just sitting there pressing B over and over again, waiting to finally get back to training up my Pokemon and actually playing the game. Storytelling is a crucial part of Pokemon games, and it was evident that the endless text boxes were making this feel horribly dated. With the announcement of Pokemon Wind and Wave, Nintendo and Game Freak have the perfect opportunity to evolve the series in a way that could completely change how Pokemon stories are told. So let's talk about what Pokemon would look like if it finally embraced voice acting and cinematic storytelling. For decades, Pokemon have told their stories almost entirely through text boxes. Games like Pokemon Red and Blue, Diamond and Pearl, and even the newer titles like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And they all rely on the same basic system. Characters appear, they face the player, and then text boxes slowly crawl across the screen as we hear that infamous beep sound hundreds of thousands of times. Now don't get me wrong, Pokemon stories can still be great, but when you compare it to other modern RPGs, it starts to feel a little outdated. Games today are using full motion cutscenes, facial animation, and voice acting to bring characters to life, and that's something Pokemon has barely explored. Now imagine starting out Pokemon Wind and Wave, and instead of a professor talking through text boxes, the game opens with a fully animated cinematic. The camera sweeps across the region, wind moves through the forests, oceans crash against cliffs, and then the professor actually speaks. Welcome to the world of Pokemon. And that's why you don't have me do this, you hire professionals. But suddenly the game would feel more alive. Rival encounters could feel more emotional, villains could feel more threatening, and big story moments could finally have the impact they deserve. The funny thing is, Pokemon has already started moving in this direction. In games like Legends Arceus and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, we've seen more cinematic camera angles and bigger story moments. But something always feels missing. Characters move their mouths, they gesture dramatically, but there's no voice acting. It's like watching a movie on mute, which makes us wonder, why hasn't Game Freak made this jump yet? If they were to add voice acting to Pokemon Winds and Waves, it could change three major things. Number one, better characters. Rivals and allies could finally show real personality. Imagine a rival actually taunting you before a battle and stirring up trouble instead of just reading a text box. This will make those wins even more satisfying. The next thing would be stronger story moments. Pokemon games often have had huge story events, like legendary Pokemon appearing and villains trying to reshape the world. I want to see these villains feel like true villains in personality with a nasty, mean character. With voice acting and cinematic direction, these moments can feel epic instead of just kinda awkward. And the last thing, pretty obvious, but it would just be a more modern Pokemon experience. Other Nintendo titles have already taken this step. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild introduced voice acting years ago, and it made the world feel far more immersive. If Pokemon followed the same path, the series could feel completely refreshed. Now with the power of the Switch 2 hardware and the massive popularity of Pokemon, the series might finally be ready for this evolution. A game like Pokemon Wind and Wave would be the perfect moment to push this franchise forward, especially if the game developers want these games to feel like true next-generation Pokemon experiences. Now, I'm not saying that every single moment of dialogue has to be voiced. Even Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom still used plenty of text dialogue, but used voice and visual cinematics for the bigger moments. At the very least, we could have voice dialogue for early in the game, gym battles, interactions with rivals, and cinematic cutscenes where legendaries appear or when battling the Pokemon League. Random NPCs could say some kind of phrase as we pass by them, instead of just having a text box over their head. Wouldn't it be fun to pass by a man in a park struggling with his stubborn Cubone, or to see a young girl playing with her Eevee? This game has been given extra development time, and Pokemon is the most valuable media entertainment company in the world. So there's no excuse to not finally make this move to voice acting and bring this series to an all-new level. We've been getting Pokemon games for 30 years, and somehow these characters still don't talk. We've seen the series take these major steps forward that I mentioned earlier, like having a 360-degree camera, open world maps, and seeing Pokemon out walking around in the wild and in cities. Now it's time for another step forward and to actually hear our friends and rival NPCs talk. So what do you think? Should Pokemon add full voice acting and cinematic cutscenes, or do the classic text boxes still work for this series? And if Pokemon Wind and Wave did include voice acting, who would you want to hear as the professor or as your rival? Surely it's not me. Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on all platforms for more Nintendo and Pokemon content. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.